Anthony Walgate was 23. Gabriel Cavari, 22. Daniel Whitworth, 21. Jack Taylor, 25. Their lives were just beginning to take off when Stephen Port drugged them with GHB, raped and murdered them. A police investigation so fundamentally flawed, an inquest found that 3 of the 4 men would probably still be alive had it not been for the Met's failures. The victims' families blamed homophobia. The police always denied it.
I don't think the Met is institutionally homophobic.
If it wasn't inherent homophobia that was at the centre of the mishandling of these cases, what was it?
It was a range of different mistakes.
But we've obtained a confidential report by the police watchdog, and tonight can reveal it found that bias and discrimination could have impacted those police failures.
Now, the families of those murdered by Stephen Port said they effectively had to become pseudo-detectives in their own cases, as Port continued to kill, leaving 3 of the 4 men's bodies in and around this graveyard. Meanwhile, the relatives of Port's victims were left to piece together clues themselves because they felt that police officers just weren't interested.
The IOPC report seen by this programme casts serious doubt on the police's claim that bias and homophobia did not play a role. The police watchdog found the possibility of assumptions being made about the lifestyle of young gay men and potential vulnerability of men cannot be ignored, and could have been based consciously or unconsciously on discriminatory views, saying where assumptions were made about whether gay men are less vulnerable, gay men cannot be victims, young gay men are involved in chemsex and a fatal overdose is expected. The public cannot be satisfied that police are making decisions based on evidence and fact.
He was an outgoing person and he was going places.
Ricky Walmsley and Daniel Whitworth lived and shared a life together. But when Daniel was murdered by Stephen Port, Ricky says he felt pushed out by the police from the start.
Did you feel the police were overtly homophobic towards you?
I believe they were being homophobic. It was an unconscious bias, you know, they didn't blatantly say homophobic things, but the way they dealt with the investigation, the way they dealt with Daniel, the way they dealt with me was homophobic. Because me and Daniel weren't married, they didn't see me as next of kin. I felt as if my relationship with Daniel was a serious one, you know, was considering marriage and buying a home together. So I just didn't understand why they couldn't have treated me like they would a straight couple.
Port would lure the young gay and bisexual men back to his flat in East London. All were killed in similar circumstances, months apart, and yet police failed to spot the signs of a serial killer.
Now, police knew that Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Cavari and Daniel Whitworth were gay, and they thought that Jack Taylor was bisexual too. And yet this police watchdog report found no evidence that investigating officers had contacted specialist LGBT officers, nor had they considered engaging with the wider LGBT community, despite the fact that 4 young men had been murdered in the same area.
The report also found some LGBT staff in the Met had experienced a culture which was suggestive of a systemic problem within the force. We contacted the Metropolitan Police, who said,
"In an organisation of more than 44,000 people, we have already acknowledged that there will be a small number with attitudes and beliefs that are not welcome in the Met. We will challenge, educate and discipline as appropriate. We're concerned to hear that anecdotally the IOPC have learned that some of the LGBT+ advisors have experienced discrimination from colleagues. This is a serious matter and we will be exploring this further."
Ricky wants a public inquiry. He and the other victims' families are incensed that not one police officer involved has lost their jobs. In fact, today the Met told us of the 9 officers who were found to have fallen below the standard required, 4 have since been promoted.